Greetings, Creating Change family. It is my great honor and pleasure to present the 2022 Susan J. Hyde Award for Longevity in the Movement to our friend, our sister, and our leader, the valuable and venerable Urvashi Vaid. In honor of Urvashi, I share this story of the birthing of the Creating Change Conference. It was October 11th, 1987. Hundreds of thousands of us marched through the streets of Washington, D.C. to demand governmental action on AIDS, to demand an end to anti-sodomy laws, to demand recognition of our families and our relationships, to demand an end to anti-LGBTQ discriminations, to demand reproductive freedom, and to demand an end to racism in this country and an end to apartheid in South Africa. We also walked through the first public display of the AIDS memorial quilt, invoking both gale force, grief, and rage. 5,000 of us protested the Bowers v. Hardwick decision by occupying the steps of the Supreme Court, with 600 arrested for civil disobedience. We had traveled from across the United States, and we went home with one mission: roll up our sleeves and get to work. And we did. At the offices of the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, then staffed by 10 people, our phones and fax machines jangled all day. Our mailbox was stuffed with letters and requests. Everyone, it seemed, who had marched contacted our tiny staff, asking for advice, technical assistance, and guidance as they planned and plotted to topple homophobia, white supremacy, and patriarchy. Though we did our best to answer every phone call and fax, the calls for help outstripped our limited resources. Just as Urvashi and I were saying to each other, there has to be a better way for our movement to teach itself. An invitation to a gay something called the War Conference arrived. The War Conference? The title didn't really resonate, but it had been called for by Larry Kramer because they were making war against us. The conference was conceived as a gathering of elite leaders, bringing together the wealthy and powerful to plan a strategy. Urvashi and I decided that that was wrong-headed, and we personally snail-mailed the invitation to the conference to our carefully compiled list of 400 or so activists, especially activists who did not reside on the coasts, were not white, were not male or wealthy, and would not be recognized by the conference organizers to be leaders. About 220 people gathered in Northern Virginia to craft ways to fight back against the ongoing war against our people. Among the recommendations, a nationwide media campaign to promote positive images of gays and lesbians, a national emergency response network to link all organizations to generate calls and letters to pressure elected officials, an annual conference of gay and lesbian activists, and a national coming out day or week to be held in the fall. Urvashi and I returned to our office dismayed and mad that a gathering of 200 plus, mostly white, male, wealthy, and well-connected people had presumed a role of movement decision makers. No, just no, we weren't having it. The national conference named in the recommendations would indeed be a space for the nurturance of a leadership cadre of the movement, but it would not look at all like the crowd at the War Conference. We told our boss, Jeff Levy, about our plan to organize a national conference for our grassroots movement of multiracial, multi-languaged, splendidly gendered, age-diverse, many-faithed, hard-working activist colleagues from all over the country. Jeff said, "You're crazy. Go make it happen." And with the team at the task force, people like Kimberly Webster, Kevin Barrell, Mary Martone, Tom DiMaria, Perry Jude Radisick, Jeff Levy, Mike Gamache, and others, and the many, many volunteers and comrades in the movement who also longed for a national conference, we made it happen. The inaugural Creating Change Conference burned bright in Washington, D.C., November 8 to 13, 1988, at the Hotel Washington, spitting distance from the dastardly Reagan White House and its vortex of evil. 300 activists and organizers taught and learned, built movement partnerships, broke through the isolation in which they often worked, and returned home with more tools, better strategies, full hearts, and renewed commitments. 34 years on, and we're still here, still queer, still creating change. Thank you, Urvashi, for your deep and unshakable confidence in the power of our people. And thank you, Irv, for being my co-conspirator and leader in manifesting the Creating Change Conference, our dream of a movement space where we learn to organize communities, debate strategies, and grow a movement to remake the world so that we are all seen and valued. And now, over to you, Kate.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry that we can't all be together, but I can't tell you how happy I am, honored I am for the opportunity to give Urvashi this great award. And quite frankly, for the opportunity to dress up a little bit. It's a special occasion. Unlike some people, I don't have a t-shirt on, but it's just a pleasure to give this wonderful award to Susan J. Hyde. Oh, sorry, I forgot. This was a Liberty Award I got in 2005. 2005 was a big year for me. The Susan J. It's the Pioneer Award I got in 2010 from Lambda Literary. I'm sorry. Oh, here's one for you, Urvashi. The Outlaws. No, that was from Fordham. You got that in 2019. That was just so beautiful. Here we go. Finally, it's not. It's the GLMA Achievement Award. Okay, now we're really going to go with it. Is it too much? Sorry. Here you go. Oh, I found it. It's the Susan J. Hyde Award for Longevity in the Movement. And I am so happy to give it to my dear partner and Wi-Fi hotspot, Urvashi Vaid.
Thanks, honey. Oh, thank you, Kate, for presenting this award to me in sort of a borderline obnoxious manner. As the late Larry Kramer once said to me when we were standing and watching you do a benefit for the New York LGBTQ Center, he said, "I'm laughing, but I'm not sure why." I want to thank Kate, especially for being my partner in life, in movement activism and community building and scheming for the past 34 years. It's perfect that you're presenting me with this award because I share it fully with you. My ability to do this work has been strengthened for more than 3 decades through our love and our collaboration. Thank you to the National LGBTQ Task Force for this truly meaningful honor. It means a lot to me for several reasons. First, because this award is named after Sue Hyde, one of the most exceptional and skilled community organizers that I've ever worked with and that I've ever learned from. From her years in the Midwest when she started out, to her years at the task force in DC, to her decades as steering the Creating Change conferences, Sue has built community and relationships wherever she goes because of her humility and her deep respect for other organizers. Thank you, Sue, for this and for your passion and devotion to our communities. A second reason this award means so much to me is because it reminds me of Alan Shue and Paul Anderson. Alan and Paul started the Stonewall Prize in 1992, modeling it after the MacArthur Genius Awards. And they did it because they were furious that the mainstream foundations like MacArthur did not fund and did not honor the contributions of LGBTQ people to our society. Alan started giving these awards through the task force many years ago, and the funds eventually provided the seeds for this Susan J. Hyde Award. So Alan Shue passed away just a few weeks ago. Paul died way back in 1992 of HIV/AIDS. And with Alan's passing, I really am sad to note it because we loved him, and all of his friends will miss his big smile, his good Midwestern warmth, and his love of our community. The third reason I'm so grateful and moved to accept this award is because of my own love and passion for this wild, ever-changing, magnificent movement that each of you at this conference and thousands of others have helped to create. I've organized for LGBTQ plus rights and liberation since the late 1970s. While we've been through so much over the past 6 or 7 decades in this movement's life, we're still in the early stages of our struggle for freedom and dignity. The 4 arguments that we had to overcome to arrive at the current, still uneven level of freedom we've achieved, those same arguments continue to be encountered in the United States and around the world. The arguments are that we're sinful, that we're criminal, that we're immoral, and that we're dangerous. From the anti-transgender bills that have been proposed and passed across this country, to the pervasive violence against transgender women of color, against lesbians and against gay, bisexual people and men, from the governmental homophobia and violence of the regimes of Hungary and Poland and Russia, to the hostile stance of the US Republican Party's platform, which still calls for an overturning of the freedom to marry, from the inability of state legislatures to pass pro-LGBT laws, to the presence in courts across this country of so-called justices who will recognize the freedom of men to go unmasked during a life-threatening epidemic, but will not respect the freedom of women to determine what to do with their own bodies, even when their lives are threatened. The truth is that the struggle for queer dignity and rights is not over. Indeed, the opposition to the recognition of our full humanity remains the same opposition it's always been: religious orthodoxy, patriarchal and supremacist traditions, political opportunism, gender binaries, and hostile ideas of human deservedness that come from a failing economic system that every day proves itself unable and unwilling to meet the biggest challenges of our times. Challenges like climate destruction, global health crises, and meeting human needs with caregiving and caretaking instead of division and destruction. Winning a feminist, anti-supremacist, multiracial, queer-loving democracy is the challenge that lies ahead of us, of each of us in the LGBTQ plus rights and liberation movements. That plural and free democracy is not guaranteed at all. The enemies of freedom posture as its defenders, but as always, they lie. Look, under the attacks on feminism, on social justice, on critical race theory, on Black Lives Matter, on all that they call cancel culture. Look underneath their slick ads and rhetoric. Can you see the guns? Can you see the murders? Can you see the violence? Do you see the bullying, hostility to difference? Can't you hear their repeated, expressed desire for the annihilation of strong women, queer people, Jews, and anyone who disagrees with them? Listen closely and tell me who the real cancelers are. Trump and the Republican Party establishment of today do not represent freedom. They represent tyranny. Their rhetoric bears echoes of final solutions. Their base is fear. The LGBTQ movement is not just in a fight for a federal Equality Act. It's in a fight for the survival of freedom and pluralism. We are facing an existential threat to our existence. Our response must be strong, militant, and much more aggressive than it's been so far. What tools do we have at our disposal? Creativity. It's the creativity that enabled us to build self-esteem, to build power and our own institutions, despite rejection and hatred and fear. We have the tools of the vote, which they're doing their best to eliminate, but which we must deploy in November to vote every one of these monsters out of power. Don't forget, to paraphrase Jim Morrison in The Doors, that while they may have the guns, we've got the numbers. And as a person living with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, longevity is a precarious dream. The longevity I hope to continue to contribute to is the survival of our movement and its values of freedom, human dignity, justice, and love. Thank you again to the task force, and thank you to Sue Hyde.